Hi, welcome to Wrinkles Society of Hope. My name is Summer Carter and I'm founder of Wrinkles. Today you're going to hear a woman talk about the wrinkles that she had to press through in life in order to become the advocate and leader that she has become. I am so excited that you have come to listen today. Please hit subscribe and share this channel. Hit that notification bell so you can hear the interviews that are coming your way. And sit back, relax, and listen as Kandice shares her story today. You have a great wrinkle-free day. Hello, Wrinkles family. I am so blessed, so excited. My sister is coming to share. We had partnered up a couple long time ago, but we just linked up automatically, and I am so blessed to have her here today. So I'm going to have her introduce herself to the Wrinkles family.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Summer, for having me. My name is Kandice James, and how would I describe myself? I am someone who is passionate in the field of helping. I support a clinical mental health facility that's multi-state, more on the administrative side. I do behavior coaching as well, and I am a mom, a wife, and a student. And those are pretty much things that sum me up. And just for reference, we met in my entrepreneurial journey because at the time I had owned a little business with my mom and my sister, and you came to one of our booths, and that's how we met.
I completely forgot about that because you were selling the bags.
Yep, it was so long ago.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. That was so long ago. I mean, I think I did I have baby number 2? I don't even remember. Wow.
I don't remember, but it was a long time ago, but it was such a blessing because I had the opportunity to meet such amazing people like you and build friendships outside of that. So yeah, that's how we met.
Oh yeah, that was my jam. I love those bags and I bought one for my mom and that is how we met. Duh.
Yes. Yes. I was like, do I have one of them laying around?
I don't know. You have to show that. I love that bag. Oh my gosh, that was great. And when we met, we automatically connected, and
Yes.
years later, still connected. That is so. Yeah, thanks for reminding me about that. Well, as we know each other for so long, not to throw our ages out there, but I don't care. We still look good.
And that's hard.
As you have progressed through this journey of getting a little older, and you had any changes physically to yourself, how did that feel, and how did you embrace that?
Changes physically. That's a very interesting and timely question for me right now. So I will disclose my age. I'm 42. And I'm kind of in this life transition of I'm no longer young, but I'm not old. And my body certainly reflects that in that, like, my kids will be like, oh, mom, can you teach me how to do a cartwheel? I'm like, yeah, I can get out here. And then as I'm running and getting ready to do it, I'm like, am I still strong enough to do it? So just kind of that uncertainty in transition. But then there's also this part of like, reflection. How do I want to age physically? And what choices and decisions am I making right now that work against that or work towards it? And so that's kind of really where my journey is with the physical adjustments in this age range. But I love it. I mean, people always talk about, oh, they're old, they're old. But my response is always, what's the alternative? I'll be old all day rather than being dead.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll take that.
I take that too. I definitely will take that. But it's something that you did speak to that I think sometimes we don't realize that although we feel so young, the years have passed by so
Oh my gosh,
quickly.
yes.
There are some physical things that you're like, what? I can't get that low,
Yeah,
or I
right.
can't flip over as I used to. What happened?
Yes. I can't run up the stairs like that all day again. No, yeah, it's
Right,
definitely
right.
definitely different.
But definitely, I love that you said, we got to embrace where we are right now. That's so
Yeah,
important, so
absolutely.
important. And as we continue to embrace some things and where we are right now, there are some wrinkles that we've had to press through to get to where we are right now. Is there a wrinkle that you can share today that you had to press through?
Yeah, it's and it's funny that you open with a question about physical change. One of the things that I didn't mention also is, recently my husband and I have sat down and talked, and we've decided like, okay, the end has happened with our journey with having children. We have a 4-year old, a 12-year old, and a 13-year old. And our 4-year old is a rainbow baby. Our 12-year old, no, I'm sorry, our 13-year old and our 4-year old are rainbow babies. And so our journey has been very challenging, which I'll go into that. But even with this transition in terms of my age and my husband saying, I kind of want to be like tapped out. Let's stop changing diapers at this point. And me as considering my infertility journey and some of the things I'm getting ready to share, it was a difficult adjustment because then I'm thinking physically as a woman, what does that mean for me? I'm not having babies anymore. Does that mean I'm old? And, kind of coming to terms with that. But I have really invited this new season in a very peaceful place and not a reactive or responsive place. And I'm at peace with our joint decision to say, we're done with that. But it certainly started with a pretty decent sized wrinkle for my life. I would say one of the most profound wrinkles in my life as I was, thinking about this. And it starts with just a brief backstory of me and my father. I have always been daddy's little girl. I mean, when you look up the definition of daddy's little girl, my face is on that. I have profile pictures of me and my father when I was younger, and he was just I literally idolized everything about him for the most part. If he ate it, I ate it. If he could do it, I tried it. If he didn't like this, I didn't like that. If he didn't like you, I don't like you. Like he was is my world. And so that's always been my life story with him. Now, my father had his own struggles with substance use and addiction. And so there was, obviously some complications with that throughout my childhood and our relationship, but still, this point still remains. I was daddy's little girl. And in 2009, towards the end of September of 2009, my father wasn't feeling good, went into a hospital, and essentially was diagnosed with stage 3 pancreatic cancer. And he passed away 6 weeks after his diagnosis. It was very quick. It was the week before Thanksgiving in 2009. Now, at this point, I had been married for about 4 years. My husband and I had been on fertility treatment, trying to have a baby, trying to expand our family. And then this happens with my father. And I'm 28 at this point. So, and I can even say this at 42. I'm going to try to get through this without having any tears, but you guys got to bear with me. But I really wasn't ready to lose my dad. And I think that anybody would, can say that at any point when you have a close relationship with somebody. You're just not ready. No one prepares you for that. But here I am, he passes away 6 weeks after we find out he even got sick. And one of the most relevant points during that process was as they were preparing for his end of life arrangements, they had asked him about a do not resuscitate. And my father says, yeah, I want to do not resuscitate unless Kandice is pregnant. And, we laughed about it because my dad was really comical and funny. If you know him, he was silly. And so we laughed about that and stuff, but it really just stayed in my heart. Like, man, I wish that I would have had children by now. And he always wanted a son. He had daughters. Then he wanted a grandson. I was the first to get married and just trying to reckon with 4 years of infertility. And now my dad's sick and dying, and I don't have a child for him to have that experience with. Excuse me. So he passes away. I'm absolutely devastated. My husband and I, do what we can to kind of pick up the pieces and build. And, prior to, so my husband's from New Orleans, so his family was affected by Hurricane Katrina. So we have these different adversities around us. And then this, just gut blow of my father passing. And even my husband and my father had a good relationship. So it was difficult for him as well. But we're trying to move on. We're trying to heal and, live this new life of, man, my dad's not here and what that means for me. We did decide to continue with fertility treatment. I had been diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, and I was not ovulating on my own. I'm insulin resistant, all of the things. I had ballooned up in weight and just all of these complications. And when I went to the doctor, they had me on clomiphene which is a fertility drug to help you ovulate. And they also had me on metformin, which is usually used for diabetics. And it's really to help regulate your blood sugar, from what I understand. And that medication is brutal. And any of our listeners, anybody who's been on that medication, y'all know what I mean. There's a couple times I almost didn't make it home. I'll just put it that way. But it's a very difficult medication to be on because of what it does to the system. So you have this hormone drug that you're on, plus this other medication. And I was just raging and mean that whole year. Plus, I'm grieving my father and things like that. So we're going through this year, trying to have a baby, try not to get discouraged. We're in year 5. My dad has passed. And then one day I'm coming home from school and I'm like, I don't feel good. And this has been like over a week. It can't be a flu. It can't be a cold because it's been enough time for it to pass. Mind you, this is pre-COVID. So I go to the store and I get a pregnancy test and I'm like, let me just see, rule it out, whatever. Excuse me. So I take the pregnancy test at home and I'm in the middle of a sentence talking to my husband and I'm like, and it was my first experience receiving a positive pregnancy test. And I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And this is a sign from God. Things are turning around. I really needed this because I'm still like far in the dumps about losing my father. And it was just such a great moment for us. So I go to the doctor to get confirmation early because I'm going to a fertility specialist so they can get blood work and they can tell you like days later. And so they're like, yeah, you're pregnant and this is positive and, going on with my plans. Okay, we're going to have you go ahead and transfer to a regular OBGYN. I go through all of the things. Everything's going great. Around week 11, I start getting the morning sickness and I'm, throwing up everything I look at and, just teary about everything, all the things that we laugh about, but we experience in early pregnancy for many women. So it's playing out to be how it should be. At about 18 weeks, they allowed me to go and find out the sex of the baby. So my husband and I go in, we get the sonogram done, and they tell us we're having a boy. And I remember laying there, they're playing an Usher song, and she's like, oh, it's a boy. She had an accent. And I was like, immediately just met with such extreme joy I've never felt. And then it was abruptly disrupted with, wow, I'm having a boy a year after my dad dies. And so the grief just kind of took over in that moment because it was like, yeah, okay, that's great. You're having a boy, but he'll never know your father and your father will never know him. You missed the deadline, that kind of that feeling. So I'm still kind of down. My husband's trying to, cheer me up. He's grieving too, because again, this is a significant loss for him as well. But we're just trying to make the best out of it. Now, at this point, I'm like, okay, I know what the sex is. I know the old school thing of waiting for your baby shower. I'm going to go buy my baby stuff. So I start ordering I had already ordered like gender neutral onesies, things like that. But I start ordering stuff for boys and my aunt and uncle had blessed me with a crib that they use for their children. And I'm very sentimental like that. So it meant so much to have this family passed down crib. And we had put it together. And it was just a very exciting time during that season. So that was around December 1st of 2010. And then on about December 12th, I think it was, I started having what I thought was round ligament pain. And so I'm like, man, I'm still working, but I'm a 911 operator. I'm not doing anything physically strenuous. So I'm just like, okay, this is weird. I'm reading all of the books. I'm in all the groups. I know the early signs. I know what I'm doing, even though it's my first pregnancy. So I wasn't too worried about it at first, but then it gets to a point where it's like, man, it's really bothering me. I had called my doctor's office and because one particular morning, because I was stopped at the grocery store on the way home from work, because I was working graveyards and I couldn't walk to the store. And so I was like, okay, I don't know if this is normal. I'm in a lot of pain and I can't really walk right now, but maybe it's round ligament. That's what everybody's saying I'm supposed to be experiencing around this time. I'm almost 20 weeks. So I get home. I didn't really think much of it. I lay down, me and my husband are watching TV. I go to the restroom and I lose my mucus plug. So I'm like, okay, my doctor's office keeps saying, you have an appointment coming up, just wait, rest, drink water. This is not normal though. So I call them and I'm like, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. If you're not going to see me, I'm going to have to go to an ER. Mind you, this is my first pregnancy. I don't know that it is absolutely my right to get up and just go to the ER. I don't have to get my doctor's permission, but I didn't know. So, excuse me, the nurse that answered the phone, I'll never forget this. She says, is this your first pregnancy? And I sigh everything. So I said to her nervously, yes. And she was like, okay, you're probably just tired. This was on a Friday. She's like, you're probably just tired. You need to drink some water, keep your feet up. If by Monday you don't have any differences in your symptoms, then, call us back. So I'm like, okay, this is weird. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Monday is when I lost my mucus plug. So Friday I was having the pain. Monday is when I lost the mucus plug. That's when I called them. I was like, look, if you're not going to see me, I'm going to go into hospital. She said, you can come on in. We'll make an appointment. We'll fit you in at 3 o'clock. So it's early in the morning. It's like 9 o'clock when I'm telling her this. And she's saying, we'll fit you in at 3 o'clock. I go into the office. I'm sitting in the waiting room so from 9 to 3, I, unbeknownst to me, am in labor and I didn't know it. So I'm in the lobby at this point, throwing up in a lot of pain. I can't even sit up. I just am a mess. And they're waiting. I finally get called back. I go back into the doctor's office room and they had me lay on the table. And I had a nurse practitioner see me that day. And she went to go examine me. And this was the first time I ever noticed the light switches in a doctor's office. The different color light switches that you'll see sometimes. I never noticed them until this appointment. And she did part of the exam. It ended very quick. She flipped on a light switch. Within seconds, two medical assistants came into the room and she looked at them calmly and said, go get the doctor right now. So I look at Derlin, my husband, and I said, that's not good. And he's like, well, you never know. So I was like, that's not good. And I just knew something was wrong. So the doctor comes, the nurse practitioner steps outside and talks to him. And this is when they're outside. This is what I'm telling my husband, something's wrong. And I'm freaking out. I'm panicking because I'm like, what is going on? And they're talking behind my back, kind of. So my doctor comes in and he looks at me and he says, I can't examine you. You are 4 centimeters dilated and your amniotic sac is hanging. I need to get you to a hospital right now. So we had car issues and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you guys going to call an ambulance? Because our car is like on its last leg. We already drove way out here. And he said, I'm going to drive you. So I'm like, okay, we get into his car. I'm in his backseat, still in labor, still not understanding that when he says I'm 4 centimeters dilated, that I'm in active labor. I didn't know that. So I'm sitting in the backseat of the car. He's playing worship music, which was like, okay, this is crazy. Why is he doing this? I'm not knowing this doctor's praying while he's flying on the freeway to try to get me to the hospital. They take me into the labor and delivery unit, right to it. And, the team starts coming, they're getting things set up and talking and all of the things. Then they have a perinatologist, which is a specialist for situations like this, basically. He comes over into the room and he starts kind of explaining stuff medically to me. I don't even know what he said because he was just going through this whole like pretty medical, like, let me just place it as nice as I can. And I just looked at him and I was like, what are we looking at bottom line for survival? And he says, you have less than 5% chance of him surviving. And that was such a sobering moment. I could hear his voice now. That's how clear it is. I could see the lights in the room, everything. Long story short, I ended up having an infection in my amniotic fluid. They don't know if it was because I dilated and I got infected or if the infection caused me to dilate. But at either rate, the doctor said at this point now, it's a race to stop you from dying. So we cannot save him. We have to let him go ahead and go through this process and be born. He will probably be born still. But even if he is born alive, he's only going to live for a couple of minutes and then, just preparing us for it. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm still in my fight mode. What do I do to protect my son? What's going on? My mom and sister arrive at the hospital, and my mom has always been a woman of faith. And, she comes to me and she's like, girl, God got this. And she's talking to me and I looked at her and I was like, 5% chance, Mom, 5% chance. And I can remember seeing just the shatter in her face when I told her that. And at this point now, it's okay, my life is at risk. So there's a lot of tension, a lot of fear around it. Long story short, my son was born, and he survived 3 hours. And in that 3 hours, I struggled. Do I fight? Do I tell them, put him in the NICU? Do I, and I had talked to the doctor about it, and he said, his survival chances, even in the NICU, are so extremely low because he was 19 weeks and 3 days. But he said, even if he was to survive, you're talking about significant disability and delay. And he said, which could affect his quality of life. And you have to ask yourself, what is the selfless thing to do? So again, I'm 28, I'm young. This is my first child. I'm trying to figure out the best decisions. And I said, okay, to the doctor, I said, okay, we'll just go through with having the baby. So I had him. He lived for 3 hours. I got to hold him. He took a big gasp of breath in my husband's arms, and they had a moment. It was devastating because I had to still birth the child. So you're still going through contractions and pain and all of the things that you would go through. But I'm coming home with no child. And that was, when I've shared this story in the past, I've always called it a special kind of cruel, because I felt like a year prior, I was in a funeral home making arrangements for my father, never knowing that a year later I'd be sitting there making arrangements for my son. And that by far was one of the greatest wrinkles I have ever experienced in my life.
Oof, that
Yeah.
is a wrinkle for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
How did you press through after with that much grief?
That's such a great question, because I reflect back on that often. I've heard stories of how incidents like this have torn families apart. I definitely will be transparent and honest. The first 2 months, I think my entire family was kind of had me on suicide watch. My husband as well. Neither one of us wanted to live. I've never experienced grief like that. I mean, even having lost my father and how significant that loss was, it pales in comparison to losing my son. And my husband and I really clung to each other a lot. I mean, that was one of the key things. We stayed with each other nonstop. And when I say stay with each other, I'm not talking about just sitting in the same room. I'm talking about the days where it was 3:30 in the morning and I'm in a fetal position, bawling in my bed, and my husband just lays next to me. And he's trying to console me while he's also carrying this incredibly heavy weight. During the daytime, we would go to our family's house and sit. And I remember specifically one time I was at my uncle's house, and I'm just sitting in the living room. Then they're, trying to help maintain a sense of normalcy. So they're, playing the TV and what do you guys want to eat for dinner? And, trying to help us take the next step forward into this new journey of now we don't have this child. And I just remember feeling numb, and I would get up, go in his bathroom, fall apart, come back out, sit down. Get up, go in the bathroom, fall apart, come back out, sit down. Early in, I wasn't in a space where I could openly talk about it because it was just such a deep pain. But as time progressed and I got to the point where I could speak about it and talk about it, it was also another form of healing for me. I really feel like extreme tragedy for me, family support was very significant. I don't think that I would be here if my family, my mother, my sister, my uncles, my aunts, my cousins, if they didn't show up for me in the way that they did, I'm pretty certain I would have just, yeah, I'm out of here, and most importantly, the way my husband showed up, because my husband showed up in the moments when nobody else was around, and those tend to be the more significant moments of grief. Those are the more like, yeah, I could just check on out of here right now. And him being able to reach me and support me through that while also carrying it. I think those were huge points for us. I also want to mention too that as much as I would love to say, God got me through it, which I do believe that absolutely. In the moments, in the months, and I will even say the years following that, I was not in a place where I was willing to talk about God, talk to God. I was angry because I felt like it was a special kind of cool. Why me, God? You know what I mean? And so my family really supported me through that. And that's how I believe he showed up for me.
That's so powerful because I think people expect people just to get on their knees and have faith, right? They expect them to be like, "Oh, God's going to give me strength, and I'm just going to pray through it." But that is so powerful that you said that was the way He showed up was through your family.
Yeah.
Especially you and your husband, because I used to work in at Phoenix Children's. So I had a lot of parents that lost children
Mm-hmm.
and babies. Um, and to go through that, a lot of relationships went through a very hard time. A lot of relationships didn't survive
Right.
at all. You know, that is amazing that your husband was there and you were there for him,
Yeah.
you know.
I
Um,
really do feel like he was there for me more. I have to really credit him for that because I'm usually a very supportive and I show up for people and things,
mhm.
but that when we talk about wrinkles, that rocks me to my core. And I also want to mention, I did for a brief period, I did seek out church and God and trying to get, because I wanted some relief from the pain. I had never felt, and I still haven't, I've never felt that type of pain before with grief. And my pastor at the time, when I talked to him about it, so I was like, I just need to understand why. Why me? Why, God? Why did this happen? Why didn't you, you know what I mean? I was praying leading up to this. Why? And he said something to me. He said a lot of things to me, but one of the most profound things he said to me was, you know, some things we will never know the answer as to why God allowed this to happen. And as cliche as I may sound, or as some people may think that's very dismissive or whatever, when I tell you it lifted a burden off of me of having to find out why, it released me from that. And I think that was huge in terms of my healing journey because I no longer felt like I got to find out why so I can heal. I just understood that, okay, I probably won't know why, but now I can focus on healing. So that was huge for me as well.
That is so powerful. That is powerful because I think we always want the answers or to
Mm-hmm.
give the answers. When people, especially when someone is grieving, I tell people sometimes you don't have the words and you
Yeah.
don't, and when you're forcing a word, sometimes you make it worse,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and I, no one's never going to feel the same pain because grief is personal.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
It's so personal. What advice would you give to a mother who may have went through this and is still not finding support or don't have she don't see a light
Mm.
at all to get through it right now?
That's a great question. I think, excuse me, I'm getting over cold. Um, I think, a support system is critical, but I also realize that, a lot of people don't have that support system. I think even I've had a shift in terms of that support system as well. But I would say, you know, for starters, there's no time clock on grief. You get to process this as long as you need to. I always tell people you don't get over it, you get used to it. And so you get used to that, having that pain. I think another part that is significant, well, for me, it was significant in my healing journey, was I remember telling my son before he passed, I told him, I promise this won't be in vain. And I dedicated myself to reaching out to other women going through it. And on an unofficial, I don't have like an organization or anything like that. It was just I became somebody that people would refer to. Oh, I know somebody who went through this. Or if I saw somebody, I'd inbox them. This is what my story is. I'm here if you need to talk. And I tell people all the time, I was like, I probably don't have all the answers. I probably don't have most of them. But you know what I'm good at? I can get a good cry. I can sit on the phone and cry with you. I can hear you say something and understand what that means truly. but I think having those supports are good to have that in place. There are support groups online. I did grow. I joined one. I can't recall what it's called off the top of my head right now. But even in like Baby Center and whatnot, what to expect apps, they have support groups for women who have lost babies. Um, if you have like Eventbrite, you may be able to find some stuff there. I would say if you have energy, do the research to find some support groups like that. I'm definitely always going to advocate for counseling, 100%. There's been a lot of times where I've sat on some couches and cried it out, even up until recent years regarding this matter. So counseling is always a great resource. But then, like I said, turning my pain into purpose. I started to really connect with other women going through it. Um, and while it's been an honor to be able to sit and hold space for these women in these places of pain that I know I've been in, to some degree, I think that it is also still very sad, um, because I've had to, not had to, but I've sat with women who have buried children that are 21 and 30 and things like that. And have I admittedly have said, to God, like, thank you. If I was going to go through this, I think that it was much more, um, I was able to survive it because it was only 3 hours of his life. I cannot fathom 30 years, 10 years, 15 years. These women and men who have laid their children to rest at these other ages where you have memories and all these things, that are both can serve as a comfort, but also just continued elements of grief. Um, that has been hard to watch, but I really honor this position of being able to sit with somebody and say, I ain't got the answers, but I'm here with you. I'm here with you. And that's all I can say is I can show up. I can sit here with you in this moment. A lot of people, especially when you're going through this, because when I went through with my son, um, people avoided me. People will say things that are from an innocent place on their end because they haven't experienced it, but are incredibly cruel. Like,
Yeah.
you'll have another baby. Girl, don't cry about that. You'll have another baby. Like, yeah, they're not playing cards. It's not like you know what I mean? I can have 50 kids. They're not going to replace my son. And families, couples can fall into that, chasing that child, having child after child after child because they're chasing that one individual child. So I think, it's important to really leverage a support system, even if that's only through therapy. And a lot of times with therapists, which I will say, I have an amazing therapist, but um, I think some of these LCSWs, the social work therapists, they're really, really great too. I'm not trying to differentiate. I'm just saying they're really great because they also have additional resources. So sometimes they can help you find support groups, for what you're going through. I think, talking about it is helpful. And if you can't talk about it, writing about it, but not holding it in, because that tends to affect you more because you're just holding it still. So having that out and then finding a way to honor that person, I think is what it definitely helped me. I can't say that this is a fix for everybody, but finding a way to honor him. He would be 16 this year. And we have done so many things, in honor of his name. And so that has helped me get to a point where I can talk about it without crying or without feeling completely devastated. His original due date was May 10th. And my father's birthday was May 14th. And my son, my other son, his birthday is May 17th. So this week is quite a special week. And where it could be challenging, it's not. And I think part of it is because of that turning that pain into purpose has really helped.
Love that. I love that. And the fact that they are all May, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. That is
Yeah.
so beautiful. And now that you, like you said, you have your son and your other children,
Yes.
but you have your son now and you've pressed through, but you still remember and hold your son that is no longer here to your heart. And you got to, let's say you got a shirt made that identifies who you are now. What would that shirt say?
Oh, Wow, that's such a great question. If I had a shirt right now that identifies who I am, I think so many things are coming up, to be honest with you, as that right now I'm in a season of becoming. But I will say, make them tell you no. That's a quote that I say all the time. Make them tell you no. And it is relevant to this story, but also relevant just in general in life. If you want to try something, you want a chance at something, I'm I'm gonna ask even when it's uncomfortable. I believe in, let people tell you no instead of assuming the answer is no. But how that's relevant in this story is one thing that I tell pregnant women around me is if you have a concern, you have a question, make them tell you the answer. It's okay. And I think learning how to advocate for ourselves in these spaces, even when we're in unfamiliar spaces, make them tell you no. And if they tell you no and you still think the answer should be yes, go find somebody else and ask them and keep pushing through until you get the yes that you need.
I love that you said that, advocate, because that's what
Yeah.
I was thinking about. So many African American women go through a lot, especially with pregnancy, and it's due to the lack of advocacy for ourselves
Right.
and physicians and medical staff advocating for, we know our bodies. We
Yeah.
understand when things are going wrong, and listening to your story is the same year that my son was born.
Okay.
He was now 16, and he was early.
Okay.
Um and there was things going on, and I remember at one point I kept saying there's something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctor kind of said, it's your first baby,
Yeah.
you're fine. As women, entire as women, we need to advocate, but especially as Black women.
Absolutely. And I'll even take it a step further. I feel like as Black women, it is critical for us to teach our daughters how to advocate in a medical field. When my daughter, who is 13 and, in puberty and stuff like that, the last couple of years when we go to her pediatrician, I have allowed her to lead the conversation. So when a pediatrician asks me questions, I look to her. And I prep, and I do this for my son too, but I prep them for that. I'm like, this is what you should expect if something happens and you don't understand. If they're saying, oh, we're going to examine this, we're going to touch this, we're going to do this, and it's something you don't agree with, you're uncomfortable with, you don't understand, open your mouth. They work for you. Your insurance is paying for this visit. They can't just do what they want to do because they have a doctor in front of their name. You have the right to ask questions. And so my children have watched me interrogate doctors. But I need her to know that. I need her to understand, like, the first time I had a pap smear, I had moved out of my parents' house. That was my first experience with that. I was a whole adult, which is a whole other story. And, I didn't need a pap smear necessarily when I was younger because I wasn't active. I wasn't active until I was in my 20s. But I don't want that for my daughter. My first experience was very traumatic. For her, it'll be with me standing right next to her. This is what you should expect. This is normal. This is not. And educating our younger daughters, nieces, cousins, the younger Black women about our stories and what to look for. If it don't sound right, it ain't right. Check it. It's okay. Even if you're wrong in the end, so at least know for sure that you are because they had to give you additional information. So I think that's really important.
Oh my gosh, that's so important for, like you said, daughters and sons.
Mhm.
I love that. I try to push mines as well, but I really don't push them as much, and that speaks volumes for these girls that have their mom right next to them. Like you said, I was in my late 20s as well, getting my
Mhm.
first pap smear, and I was devastated.
Yeah. And honestly, if you're in there, like it's a stranger. My first one was with a white male doctor in an ER.
Mm,
That wasn't fun. That was
yeah,
traumatic.
that's traumatic.
Hmm.
That is so traumatic. And I love that, the be that voice, letting your daughter know that she can be that voice as well,
Hmm.
which moves into the voice that you are in the community. Tell
Yes.
us the things and the voices and the things that you're doing in the community to make sure that people are knowing what they can do to advocate for themselves.
Absolutely. So, like I said, I do work mental health in terms more on the administrative side. I work for, shamelessly name dropping, Compass to the Crest Counseling. They provide services in both Indiana and Arizona. We have a couple other states too, but those are our main offices. I work with an amazing group of professionals. Like these therapists, yes, I'm biased, but we have the best therapists ever on our team, and I love working with them. Just on a personal level, they pour into us, each other so much, and so that's amazing. And I get to work under an incredibly amazing CEO, Dr. Jennifer McChristian. If y'all don't know her, look her up. She actually has a book out too recently. I'm plugging her stuff, but so that's one way that I work in the community where I get to help people get their needs met in the mental health field by helping process their intakes and stuff and get connected with services. Additionally, kind of related to what I talked about here, I do content creation. I should know my name online. I think it's Kandice James, but it might be who am I? WHOEMIYE. It may be on my platform. I'm on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, as well as YouTube. And I do food content creation and some motivational content. Why that's relevant is because one of the things that I enjoy most about being a mother is making good meals for my kids. I really enjoy cooking for my children. And so I do some food content online. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have going on right now that's ready to be talked about.
Well,
I'm working on a couple
everything
other
you
projects,
do.
but that's down the line.
Right, right. Everything you do is amazing. That's why I just cling to you. So, as you see these links coming across, let's connect, keep following. Content is amazing. I'm hungry every
Thank
time I
you.
look at her content. I'm mad that she didn't cook for me when she was in Arizona, so she owes me a meal when I come for a visit. Um, but everything's amazing. But I first, like I said, we connected right away when you were selling the bags,
Yes.
but also stay connected because of all the great things you're doing and did in the community here and still continue to do here in Arizona and now where you are now. What last bit of advice would you just give to women? And that's okay, women in general, about their mental health?
Sorry. Recently in reflection, I thought you are exactly who you believe you are. Belief is a very strong thing. And no matter what, whether you identify with a religion or whatever, everybody believes something. And you can tell what they believe by how they live, who they are. So as I was thinking about this, I thought about the things in my life that I would like change in, what I'd like different. And I'll give an example. I really would like to look like I did in my 20s. You know what I mean? Have that figure from my 20s, okay? But I really started to examine my beliefs because I am who I believe I am. And as I kind of unpeeled this layer, I realized truly I don't believe that I can get anywhere near the physical shape I was in. Now I don't need to get in the exact shape. Y'all know what I mean. Just getting in better shape. But I don't really truly believe that, which is why I don't invest my time in the gym, which is why I don't stay consistent on a diet. Because really in the back of my mind, I think it's not going to happen. I believe that. So that leads to my next point. I am challenging people around me to evaluate what you need to actively disbelieve. Whether you were told as a child you're dumb and you're never going to be anything, you may have accepted that as a belief and you believe that. And now you're in this life, 30, 40, maybe even 50, and you haven't really accomplished what you want to accomplish in your life because that belief held on for so long. But every day we get a choice on whether or not we pick that belief up or we dismantle it. So I'd invite you to accept that you are who you believe you are. So if you're happy with who you are, you got some good beliefs set in place, more than likely. But if there are things you're unhappy about with yourself or your life, evaluate what you need to disbelieve and then start making action to do so.
Yes, yes. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Oh, everything. I knew you would be amazing. I'm so happy that you came to share with us today.
I hope I didn't talk too fast.
No, you're amazing, right on point, and definitely we have to have you come back again soon.
I would love to. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, Wrinkles.